Walcott, who can run away from them. Blin trying to buy him a bit of time. Ozil, two!
This is Barkley, away from Otamendi. He's got two runners to his left and one to his right. Barkley wants to go alone, and why not?
Manchester City are still alive here. Balotelli, Aguero!
Hello and welcome to the Football Hipsters English Breakfast. We are back again in your ears. It's a Sunday evening and I've got the two regular panellists back with me tonight. I've got Danny and I've got Ross as usual. Good evening to you both.
Evening.
Hello.
Hello and welcome back, Danny. Welcome back. I had a nice little week off last week, didn't you?
I went to the Caribbean, or the Caribbean if you're American, or the other way around, I don't know.
In your own little world, I'm sure that's very true.
I just looked at a picture of it.
While you were away, myself and Ross did all sorts, including the mighty Predictatron, which we'll come back to in a short while.
That sounds amazing.
Oh, it was a wonderful occasion, and rumour has it we might have got a few right, but we'll come back to that in a minute.
Was it a sight to behold?
It was something. It was a site that we used. That's good enough for me.
Good.
Right, let's talk some football then, shall we? So we're only a week away from the end of the domestic seasons. In fact, some of the domestic seasons wrapped up this weekend, so we have much to discuss. We'll start at the top, start the Premier League, and work our way down, as it were. Let's start at the bottom, shall we? Because we'll touch on Leicester in a minute because we've touched on them all the way through. But let's start at the bottom because that's where the real fingernail stuff is going. Ross, let's start with the kind of not so good Norwich, and they kicked off the weekend's games against Manchester United at Carrow Road, 12:45 on the Saturday, and it wasn't very good, was it, from either perspective? But United ended up with the points. What did you make of it?
It was a pretty crap game. I think it kind of summarised both sides, the position they're in and the seasons they've had. I think Man United flattered to deceive. Good win for them under the circumstances because fourth is still something within their grasp. I think it's a very harsh one on Norwich personally because although the quality wasn't there, I still think they would have thought at least by half time they could have got something out of that game. But there you go. You play against players like Mata and all the other guys that they've got, especially in the attacking lineup at Man United, and you run the risk. So, unfortunately, it did kind of just show why Norwich are probably going down and some of the problems they've had this season in acclimatising to Premier League football.
Absolutely. And from your knowledge of Championship football, we will touch on, of course, the teams that are coming up and whatnot in a minute. But do you think Norwich have almost kind of put the blueprint in place for how not to do things in that they don't have anyone that really scores goals?
Yeah, I mean, that was always the big concern with them because Cameron Jerome was a fantastic Championship striker, but I think he hits his glass ceiling when he comes into the Premier League because for whatever reason he just can't do it consistently. And they probably learned from Ricky van Wolfswinkel that you can't spend 15 million on a player up front and guarantee goals. So they probably just stuck with what they knew, and that's failed as well. So yeah, I mean, it's a warning for the teams that are coming up. It's a sign for all the teams that will ever come up that if you haven't got a good goal scorer, then you're definitely going to have problems in this division. And ultimately, it's probably what's cost Norwich.
Yeah, absolutely, Ricky van Wolfswinkel there. And Danny, let's come to you for Norwich. Obviously, a grand old-fashioned club. You'll probably remember the days of the Chris Suttons and the Raul Foxes and the Jeremy Gosses.
I was going to say Jeremy Goss.
Bayern Munich and all that jazz.
Yeah, 1993, 94, I think it might have been.
Yeah, first season of the Premier League, wasn't it? Where they had those horrible Brian Gunn, those horrible sort of yellow and green speckly shirts that were hideous.
It looked like a bowler on a shirt.
It really did. But what do you make of them overall this season? I mean, they haven't quite been good enough, is the bottom line. They've kind of been organised, and Alex Neil seems like a good, thoroughly nice bloke who you definitely wouldn't cross in a dark alley. But the quality just lacking a bit.
I think, like Ross has made a good point there. I just had to look. Cameron Jerome has now played for 4 Premier League teams, and he has done slightly less than both. I mean, Birmingham City was about his best 10 in 32, but last season when Norwich, as they got promoted, he got 20 goals. This season, 3 in 33. There's a lot of sub on, a lot of sub off, like it's been with the entire Norwich team, because they're struggling. I think they were the second top Premiership spenders in the January transfer window. They got the closer bloke from Wolfsburg, and they got Naismith, who was once on trial at Arsenal. Not a lot of people know that. From Everton, who he's done absolutely nothing. And they got the Madison bloke from Coventry, and they brought a load of players in, and they have done absolutely nothing. Wolfswinkel is at Betis at the moment. What a name that is. What a legend of a man. They go and buy him. He scores on his debut for that season. Then they get relegated, and that's the only goal he scored all season. They thought, we've got a winner here. But yeah, they're gonna be one of your perennial up and downers like Crystal Palace, West Brom, Sunderland. Among those kind of things. But the thing that worried me about that, or that most concerning about that, is poor old Juan Mata. Juan?
Go with Juan.
Juan Mata. He's now been at Man United for best part of 3 seasons. One bugger all. He's got 21 goals, and he's wasted there. He must look at that. Look at his life and go, what am I doing here? He's playing with morons like Depay, who's come to the club and gone, hey, look at me, I'm the man. No, you're not. You're an idiot. You're rubbish. Carrick in midfield on his crutches, and they got Rojo's, another one cost an absolute fortune. And someone made a very good point on TalkSport Radio 5, I don't really listen to TalkSport. It said, what kind of team is it where your best player for 2 years in a row that voted player of the season is De Gea? And who's just been voted their player of the season?
De
Gea for the 3rd season in a row. I think that sums up Man United.
Speaks volumes, doesn't it? Yeah.
Do you think he'll be off in the summer?
There's talk he's going to stick around, isn't it? Because I think Real Madrid are after Thibaut Courtois now.
But you in goal for Real Madrid, and they'd still win the title, or either them or Barcelona by 1,000,000 points.
I feel sorry for Keylor Navas. He's done nothing wrong, and they keep trying to get rid of him. It's bizarre, but
I do feel for Norwich. So Norwich, I mean, you're just looking at the table. Norwich are down, aren't they? I mean, they've got 2 games left to go, and those 2 games are playing midweek. Who are they playing midweek?
It's Watford and Everton they've got lost.
Yeah.
Because Sunderland have got the other way around. They've got Everton midweek and Watford next week.
Oh yeah, I see. 7:45 on Wednesday. Sunderland and Norwich both play. So, I mean, I know it's when Sunderland are playing. When everyone playing Everton, it's an automatic 3 points. That's how it works when you're at Everton. Why they haven't sacked him yet, I've no idea. But Norwich, I like Norwich. They're a local club to me. They're only about an hour and a bit away. It's very sad they've gone down. Well, virtually gone down. I just hope Newcastle get a win on the last game of the season.
Yeah, we'll touch on
the Geordies.
Touch on that in a minute. Just before we leave this game, Russ, Man United still, amazingly, I think it is amazing that they're still in with a shout of top 4. We will explain some of the reasons for that when we come to Sunday's games, but they are still in with a shout. They've got West Ham away in midweek, and they finish with, I can't remember who they finished with. I shall have to look that up. Here we go. They finish at... No, that's West Ham in midweek. They finish at home to Bournemouth. There we go. Got there in the end. Best laid plans. So you would suggest that if they win both of those, there's a very good chance they could sneak into 4th place. Do you think that's enough to keep Mr. Van Gaal's army in place, or do you still think there's going to be a lot of change in the summer there?
Oh, I think that was done and dusted 3 months ago. I think it has to be. You know, the thing with, as you'll know as Arsenal fans, is one of the things is if you can't win the league, then the next best thing in this division is finishing above your rivals. And it used to be a moot point with the Manchesters because City were always near the bottom. But now with Pep coming in, there's a very real chance that Manchester City could become a dynasty for the next couple of years if Pep gets it right. They need a change as far as I'm concerned, and I think they've been watching this unfold with Van Gaal for 2 years now. And like I say, it's incredible they could yet get top 4, considering how bad their season's been and how many fans have turned against him. I don't think they can afford to keep Van Gaal on any longer. Whether he wins the FA Cup, whether he gets them 4th, I don't think any of it is going to be enough. I think it's Mourinho or bust for United.
Yeah, I think you might be right. He certainly played a very good politician's role, Van Gaal, if he is indeed out the door, that's for sure. We'll move on to another club in desperate peril. We'll promise you we're saving the best for last, but Newcastle. Now, they went to beleaguered, withdrawn, depressed Aston Villa, who all of a sudden have decided they're just going to throw the shackles off and try and enjoy themselves, cheering corners, etc. 0-0 with Newcastle yesterday. Ross, I'll start with you. It's not enough, is it, for Newcastle? They had to win that game, surely.
Oh, no, considering how the rest of the relegation zone panned out over the weekend, that is... I mean, you and I were sat here predicting the games last week. We both went for Newcastle wins, and we both thought they'd be relatively comfortable. You know, I think we both went with 2-1 in the end, but we both had absolutely no doubt that Newcastle would win that game. To draw that 0-0 is huge. They were doing so well in the run up to that game, and I thought it, and Newcastle fans would have thought. I imagine even Aston Villa fans would have thought Newcastle had that. They needed the points far more than Villa did, but credit to Aston Villa. I think a lot of those players are now playing with a bit more freedom. Although Lescott really shouldn't have said it, I think they are playing with a lot more freedom, and I think a lot of them are trying to put themselves in the shop window before they all go down to the Championship and are looking for new homes. So they've put their back into it the last couple of weeks, and that's a fantastic point for Villa, which I don't think anyone saw coming. But for Newcastle, I mean, if they do go down, that is going to be the game that relegated them. I can't think of any other moment this season where I thought that's the game. This is the one. This is the one for Newcastle. Huge point.
Yeah, absolutely. And Villa just finding some quote-unquote form just in time before they arrive to spoil Arsenal's day on the final game of the season. I'm sure Danny will agree. And Danny, I know you didn't necessarily see a lot of the highlights of this game, if any, but
were there any?
not really. The one thing that spoke volumes was poor old Mitrovic missed a couple of gilt-edged chances. You can't blame the lad. I mean, he's 21. A lot of pressure on him. Colback also missed a couple. I think Townsend had a couple of efforts as well. Newcastle just lacking quality, and if they go down, surely Rafa will go with them. They've got an awful lot of players, as me and Ross covered a few weeks ago, that you'd have to think are going to have to be shipped out. Newcastle they're in real trouble if they go down, surely.
Although it's like saying that the top spenders in the January transfer window were them and Norwich, and just looking at the stats here, Villa had 2 shots and neither on target, and Newcastle had 9 with 3 on target. But it's I heard one of the podcasts, I think it might have been the Guardian pod, saying that all these other teams, when they have got relegation clauses where you're on 50% wages, Newcastle have got none of them. And you see already that as soon as Benitez came in, one of the first things he did was drop Shelvey. Because he says Shelvey is not a team man, and it's a bit surprising that they played Cisse up front rather than starting with Mitrovic, who, you feed him a pound of raw meat before the game starts, and you're on a winner because the man is an animal. It's wonderful to watch. So Newcastle are going to win the last game of the season. They're hopefully going to win it. No, they don't need to win it 9-0, do they? Goal difference doesn't matter anymore. If they win the last game of the season, I will get Alan Shearer's face tattooed on my cat.
Well, that is something to behold, if ever there was something.
Yes.
Let's talk about the big one then of the weekend. Ross, it was Sunderland's victory. Yes, victory over Chelsea. Not only a victory, but a victory from behind. So they showed real grit and determination. They were a goal down. They were 2-1 down. They came back to win against Chelsea, who we'll touch on in a second. An absolute worldie from Wabi Kazri, who's a player I must admit I like a lot. I've liked him for a long time. And Sunderland, that stadium was just rocking. And I can't help but feel that kind of just got them over the line. The crowd were right behind them, and they know now that if they beat Everton on Wednesday, it doesn't matter what Newcastle and Norwich do, they're up and the other two are gone. So what did you make of Sunderland, and what do you make of Sam Allardyce and the job he's done there?
I wasn't surprised that they got back to 2-2. I will admit that, because I think Sam Allardyce is a good manager. He has them well organised, and Chelsea just haven't been at it all season. They've got nothing to play for at this point. So it doesn't surprise me they got back to 2-2, but it does surprise me that they won the game. And like you say, I think it might very well have been down to the atmosphere and just the feeling that it was turning for them. It was one of those moments in a team's season where you just feel like everything's going your way. As soon as that Wabi Kazri goal goes in, which is an absolute rocket, it's not one of those that people will say, oh, the goalkeeper could have done this. But no, it's far too fast. It's going far too quickly. No one's got a hope in hell of catching that. As soon as that goes in, the whole stadium goes. Everyone just feels a lot better about it. I know Costa then, or was it Matic? Sorry, then gets the goal to kind of quiet things down by half time. But the goal alone was enough to just make everyone go, right, we can do this. We truly believe in this. And it's another one of those moments, like I was just saying with Newcastle, it's one of those moments that at the end of the season, you'll look at the calendar and go, that's where it was. That's where Sunderland stayed up. That's the moment where we knew it was going to be Sunderland, and it was incredible to watch it. And like I said, that Kazri goal is worth the price of admission alone.
Yeah, absolutely. It was indeed a rocket. If you haven't seen it, do look it up. And like you say, regardless of the deflection, that was going in, even if it took Courtois with it. It was a hell of a shot. So Danny, essentially, as we say, Sunderland know what they need to do now. They've got Roberto Martinez's Everton on Wednesday, and they'll kick off simultaneously with Norwich. But as we say, what more could Sunderland fans and indeed Sunderland need as motivation, knowing that if they win, they stay up? That's motivation alone. But knowing you can send Newcastle down at the same time, I just can't see any way Sunderland don't win this game. Can you?
No, well, no, because Everton are rubbish, and
Yeah, if it was anyone else but Everton,
they
maybe.
need to sack poor old Martinez as soon as possible and get someone else new in. I did mean to say, well done to all the Villa fans yesterday. I think they had 33,000 people turned up for the game. I did have the number written down on my screen, but yesterday at Sunderland, 47,000 people. Oof. And then Jermaine Defoe getting his 11th goal of 2016. That's just this calendar year. That man has single-handedly dragged them up, and also the Don in goal as they got rid of was it Pantilimon?
Yes, they got he went to where did
Watford.
he go? Watford, yeah.
Because he was meant to be their FA Cup.
Not that anyone would remember that, but he's gone.
No, very true, very true.
But it's nice to see that. I've always been a bit of a fan of Sebastian Larsson. He's got a hell of a free kick on him, and he's been out for quite a while. But it's just amazing the way that Chelsea collapsed. But my heart sunk when I saw that John Terry, poor old John Terry, had been. I know you're thinking, please be careful, and I will. He got an 87th minute booking, a 95th minute booking, so 2 yellows and then a red, and now he's suspended. And it's because it's his second red card of the season. Oh, Dora, get your bum out of the way of the screen, will you? Oh, I'm being attacked by the cat. I'm not really going to get a tattoo of Alan Shearer on you. She's gone now, that's good. So he's going to miss the rest of the games for the season, isn't he? So the big send-off. He's not going to be playing.
No.
Oh, what a way to end your wonderful career, you horrible man.
And didn't it have the look of resignation as he threw the captain's armband on the floor and trudged off, and it just had the bit of the old...
It did feel very much like a London version of Zinedine Zidane to me.
It did, didn't it? Yeah,
so he'll be off to MLS ASAP with the rest of those lovely Chelsea people who I've admired for so many years.
I'm watching Messrs Gerrard and Keane for LA Galaxy as we speak. So
Keane got 2 last. What's the score?
3-2. They were 3-0 up Galaxy,
didn't he?
It's now 3-2. So game on.
Keane got a couple. Is Ashley Cole playing? Standing there getting paid, but not.
I think
actually
he's still
playing?
been suspended, hasn't he? He's got a ban last time I heard.
Yeah, he had a big doodah last year, didn't he? And he got banned, so no, he's not available. But
good luck to Sunderland. I hope you win, but I also hope Newcastle win. Have I mentioned that?
Yeah, do you know I'm really torn because I love Newcastle's fans and the passion they've got there, but ultimately
they want the owner gone, and that's one way of maybe getting rid of him.
Yeah, and I just think Sunderland have just hit that period of form just at the right time, and in Defoe they've got what neither Norwich or Newcastle have got, and that is a goal scorer, and the finish for the winning goal as well. I mean, that touch. I know, Ross, you've seen this. I mean, just to bring it out the sky. I know it wasn't a fast cross, but just to have it brought out like that and straight in front of him, and to finish under that sort of pressure, and then that stadium just erupted. I mean, can you see any way that they don't beat Everton? Can you see a way that they don't beat Everton? I mean, I just can't see it.
No, I watched Everton play us. I watched them play Bournemouth last week. I then watched them play Leicester. As far as I'm concerned, what I said a few weeks back is still valid. If they keep Martinez and they lose Lukaku, Stones, maybe even Barkley, and then replace them with a Nyasa and a Funes Mori, then they're going to be in super, super trouble in the seasons ahead. And they will end up like Newcastle because they have been awful. And I think just the fact that Sunderland have got so much to play for makes this game almost moot. I don't see Everton winning it. But even a draw would probably be enough because I know we'll touch on Tottenham later and I've got my opinions on how they'll do next week. But I think a draw would probably be enough at this rate to relegate Norwich and Newcastle. But I mean, Newcastle done it to themselves because, like I say, that Villa result is an absolute shocker as far as I'm concerned. But the crime they committed this year was thinking they were better than they were. They started this season buying players for Europa League push, and that they're not that kind of team. That they're a bottom 5 team, and they've been caught out, and they tried it again in January, and they've been caught out again, and now they're going to be in real trouble when they fall down to the Football League because they are not as kind as the Premier League are when it comes to financial fair play.
No, and how?
Bournemouth will find out, and Leicester might find out if they ever get relegated.
And QPR have found out, and Pompey certainly found out.
What have they done to QPR? I know there's going to be a £30 million fine, wasn't there?
Yeah, QPR are still getting getting investigations done for some of their dealings in the Premier League and the Championship. So that's one that will inevitably rumble on until they eventually get whacked with a 10-point deduction.
So Portsmouth, QPR, is there a link with those two teams? I can't think of one.
Also one at Southampton, but there you go.
Dog.
Yeah, maybe it was, yeah. But yeah, and of course QPR, I think, in particular, their form suffered on the pitch as a result of some of it as well.
Oh, they've had to strip away everything. Every QPR player you could name from the team that went down, apart from maybe Sean Derry, has moved on. They've had to rebrand everything, and I think Newcastle could be in real danger of going the same way if they don't bounce back immediately. But I don't see it personally.
For the Geordies will take anything to get rid of Mike Ashley. They hate him and what he's doing to the club, and I think they would be quite happy to go down to maybe the third tier of English football if it got him out of the club and let the fans own the club.
Start again.
Like Portsmouth have done. And good luck to Portsmouth in the... we'll talk about that later, but sometimes I think I'd like that for my club, just to go and then be worth nothing, and then all the fans can buy it, and then, because what Arsenal fans, we all get on and we'll run it perfectly.
Yeah, of course. Should be said, though, in Mike Ashley's defence, and I know that's not going to be a popular view to start a sentence with, but he did put the money up. I mean, I think Steve McLaren's got an awful lot to answer for, but then equally you could say Mike Ashley left it too late to replace him. So,
well, I said this about Chilino a couple of weeks back. I genuinely think Mike Ashley thinks that everything he's doing is for the best of Newcastle. I really do. Some of the decisions he makes, I think he really believes they're going to work, but at the same time, you can't justify as many bad decisions as he's made, and clearly the fans don't want him, and I think they kind of agree now that some of his ambitions are a bit delusional, because Newcastle just aren't in a position to be winning cups right now. They're not in a position to be challenging for Europe. They've got real problems which he/his managers have just failed to address.
True.
But they all get a free mug.
Yeah, they all get a free mug. Sports Direct mug. Other mugs are available, but not of that size. And speaking of rebrands, of course, QPR have rebranded their club crest, I noticed this week. So
have they?
Yes, they have indeed.
It's actually quite slick as far as rebrands go. It's not as bad as Sheffield Wednesday's one where they turned it into a Hogwarts.
Oh, that's wretched, yeah.
I don't like the Rangers one either. You can't make out what the letters are.
No, some pretty dodgy things going on. I think Man City are rebranding as well, aren't they?
Oh, QPR,
yeah, so West Ham.
Nice. Like
West Ham have got a new one coming out next year for the new stadium. So.
Yeah. Change. Everybody's changed. I'm waiting for Leicester to put Gary Lineker's face on a packet of crisps on their
Oh, and Aston Villa, of course. Aston Villa have spent £60,000 rebranding themselves, and all they've done is taken out the word in there.
I was going to say, taken prepared off, and that's
West Ham's one is they've taken out the sandcastle. Probably because they've been given a new sandcastle for free, so they don't have to have one on their badge.
Now, Danny, you'll upset our loyal listener Mark, who I know is listening. So
up the Hammers. I've been there once. They lost 1-0 to Chelsea in the League Cup.
Danny out.
1994.
Right, let's move on. We're just going to do a quick blanket of games because there's a few games that really didn't mean anything. So we'll just quickly whip through those. We had West Brom and Bournemouth playing out a 1-1 draw, which I actually predicted score perfect. Well, hey, had to get one right. West Brom took the lead through Rondon, equalised by Matt Ritchie in a game that Harry Arter was very fortunate to stay on, I have to say. And the young lad, Lecco, is it, for West Brom, the teenager? He looks like a talent. He did well.
People are after Wilson already.
Callum Wilson, I do like Callum Wilson.
How long has it been since Benekafobe scored?
He hasn't played for a while, has he? I think he's been in and out of the side.
His goal was in 1st of March. But again, Soccerway lists you as played, even if you haven't. They need to sort that out.
Yes, they do.
Speaking of those two stay at the club next season, that's a formidable partnership up front.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. If they can get Callum Wilson firing again, I mean, if they don't sell him.
4-4-2, don't they?
Yes, if they don't sell him, of course. And speaking of firing, Dwight Gale was firing for Crystal Palace. He always seems to score at the end of the season, bless him. His 2 goals turned around a deficit at home to Stoke City, who also have a new kit, might add. They've changed sponsors of their kits. They've got a new kit coming out. Didn't help them today, though. They lost 2-1. Charlie Adam put them in front. Dwight Gale's 2 goals, including a free kick where he slipped over to score, turn that round, and Palace now officially mathematically safe.
And the new sponsors are now sponsoring the stadium. Is it Bet365?
They were the shirt sponsors already, but they've now got a Macron kit next year. So
they have renamed the stadium as well. It's the Bet365 stadium.
The Bet365
Someone rang up to Radio 5. Well, it's disgraceful. They changed the name of the Britannia, and the person on the radio went, "You do know the Britannia
is a building society."
It's a building society. Well, I can't remember. I thought it was a bank. It's a bank, and it's not actually the name of the stadium. They've been very quiet.
Yeah, Awkward silence there.
Good to see Gale getting a couple of goals ready for the FA Cup final when they're going to play a front three of Gale,
Balassi,
Adebayor and
Wilfried
Shamak.
Zaha. Oh,
And the
Shamak.
Arsenal boys are going to win the FA Cup for Palace. Come on.
Goodness gracious me. Let's have a little bit more of an in-depth look at this next game. West Ham 1, Swansea 4. Ross, I think it's fair to say that neither of us predicted this one, did we? I got the scoreline right, but the wrong way round. Does this just highlight how kind of mental the Premier League can be? Because I don't think anyone saw this coming. And Slaven Bilic afterwards, very interesting in his post-match press conference, he said that he was happy with his team going forward when they had the ball. When they didn't have the ball, he said we had, quote, too many passengers, players looking for someone to do the job for them. Quite cutting, but probably quite fair on a day where West Ham just, fell apart on the big stage and lost 4-1. I mean, what happened here?
I don't think anyone's going to be able to tell you that. I think it's only down to the back four. I think we should be fair to Swansea. They got a very big win against Chelsea. I think it was last week beforehand now. And they came into this game with some momentum, and they were clearly not going to just sit down and roll over for West Ham in their second to last game at the Bullying Ground. So I think fair play to Swansea for really giving it a go. But you've got to ask what happened to West Ham, because that should have been a home win every day of the week. But I've said on this pod more than once now, the thing with West Ham this season has been that they continually slip up against the smaller teams. You know, I back them every single time they play a Tottenham, an Arsenal, a Man City, a Man United. But every time they play a lower league team, they just can't seem to get the job done. And this was a very good example of it, and it just seemed to backfire in a way that I don't think anyone could have seen coming.
No, Ki Sung-young, particularly to the fore in that game, he scored a delightful goal and had a very good game, as did the young lad Kingsley. I think it's actually gone down as his own goal, but I thought he was pretty good on the day. So fair play to him. Goals from Routledge, Ayew and Gomi slate on as well. So very good win for Swansea. Guidolin has quietly done a very good job there. 11th place in the Premier League now.
He is being linked to Watford, though.
He is, apparently, yeah. The talk is they're going to switch managers, isn't there? There's
It's
quite a lot of talk about
very bizarre, because Swansea would surely get the better end of that deal. In my opinion, that's one of the strangest stories I've heard so far.
Yeah, it's a really bizarre one. That really bizarre. One thing I would say though is I think it's fair to say the Jack Army would take to Quique Sanchez Flores quite nicely. I think they quite like their flamboyant managers down there, but we shall see what happens there. So that all but ends West Ham's. In fact, I think it does mathematically end their Champions League challenge now. They can still sneak into Europa League, but there are other teams in form, which, Ross, brings us nicely to Southampton, who played on the Sunday away at Spurs. It didn't start well. Spurs were in front after. I'll let you decide, but I felt it was a Fraser Forster cock up. He sort of comes, doesn't get there, goes back, tries to make up for it, and horribly all goes wrong. Homminson puts Spurs 1 up in 16 minutes. And then it was the Stephen Davis show. 2 goals from him. And wouldn't you know it, I think, didn't you predict this result?
Yep, I did.
Bang on. 2-1. I mean, what a result.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot for us as Southampton fans. That means a tremendous amount. Koeman has now beaten every single Premier League team he's managed against as a Southampton manager. Tottenham and Man City were the last 2 he had to beat, and we've done them both. But done them both in the last 2 weeks. If we beat Crystal Palace, or at least draw against Crystal Palace next week, then this season we will have no team will have done the double over us this season if we can get something off Palace. For us as Southampton fans, I can't speak highly enough of Mauricio Pochettino. I think he's a great manager, great guy, and he's going to do wonderful things for Tottenham. But I still haven't really forgiven him for the way he's left us and the exodus that he put in place. And we have never been able to get one over on him since he left for Tottenham. So as Southampton fans, that is huge for us as well. For our European position, that's fantastic. We're still well within a shout. We'd have to rely on either Man United or Liverpool winning their cups to get it, but it's still well within our grasp now, especially if we beat Palace next week. So it's fantastic. You know, you can't speak high enough of that result or that performance, because I never like playing Tottenham. I've never enjoyed it. They always just seem to have our number, and I always wonder how we're even going to score. And I was thinking that by the time that Son put Tottenham ahead today. But 2 goals, I think no one comes out of any of the goals particularly well. I think Lloris is at fault for both of his. I don't know how Stephen Davis' second one goes in, because it is a very, very slow daisy cutter. I was watching it go in, just kind of looking down at my watch thinking, is that gone wide? Is that going in? What's happening? And Thankfully, it went in, and the Forster, it's a Forster mistake. I love Fraser Forster, and I know Danny thinks highly of him, and there's a lot of people that say they'd rather have him in than Joe Hart. And there's a lot of people saying he's been one of our best players. And yeah, fantastic. If you watch him play against Arsenal and the saves he made there, brilliant. But let's not forget the 3 games he had after that run against Chelsea, Bournemouth, and someone who I've now forgotten, where he made absolute howlers, and he's done it again today. So let's not gloss over the bad. He made a horrible mistake there, and thankfully it hasn't come back to bite us, but he has to work on that, because that is concerning, and it will hamper us if we try to progress again next season and try and get a cemented 5th or 4th spot. So on the whole, I mean, you can't speak high enough of what that means in context of the stats I've just listed off, but as a Southampton fan, I was a little worried that things would peter out against Man City and against Tottenham, but it's incredible. 6 points from those 2 games, one of them away as well. It's incredible. So can't speak high enough of Koeman or the Saints' performance today.
Whether you get European football or not, a top 6 finish is pretty darn impressive. Given...
Well, we've now matched our best points tally as well. So anything against Crystal Palace will top us, will take us over the edge. One thing I would say on Tottenham though, I think this is analysis you might not hear anywhere else, but I think the weather really played in our favour today as well, because we've been talking endlessly about when Tottenham are going to blow up, when they're going to run out of steam.
Yes.
And it's very easy to run and play that style when it's going well. When Tottenham are in a title race, very easy to carry on running because you think that the next goal could win you a League Cup. But when things have gone wrong and Leicester have already got it sorted, and then you play in the sweltering hot sun for, I think that was the 37th game that Harry Kane's played this season, including internationals. When you play against a team like Southampton that will make you run and will press you, and you'll try and do it as well, I think the sun did a real number on Tottenham today. And I think if it comes out again next week, then Newcastle could have some fun there as well.
Yes, absolutely. And Danny, I'll let you try your very best to be impartial here. I know it will be tough, but a pretty damaging week for Tottenham all round. Obviously, surrendering their title challenge eventually on Monday, going down with a bit of a catastrophe really. The wheels completely came off against Chelsea. Losing Dele Alli for suspension as well as Dembele didn't help. Too many players didn't seem to perform today. I mean, it's still a successful season for Spurs. They, as grudgingly as it is to admit it, they have been very impressive this season. But if they now end up finishing potentially behind Arsenal, will they look at this and think, we really have tailed off here? And would it even affect what they might do in the summer business-wise?
I think they would be very disappointed. My mate Lee hasn't spoke to me in 2 weeks. Ross, he's played 37 in the league. He's played 54 games in all competitions.
54?
And England.
God, wow. That's why I didn't turn up today then, isn't it?
That is immense. One thing about before I forget, one thing about Southampton, you had 6 clean sheets in a row. Now 12 games without a clean sheet.
Yep.
So that's well done Southampton.
You've got to look at both sides. There's a lot of hype about Van Dijk as well, who's just signed a 6-year deal. But everyone's too busy talking about how great these players are, but they completely forget some of the errors. And you've got to look at the whole thing. You can't forget that as good as Forster's been, he still made these mistakes, and without them, who knows where we could have been.
And also, Spurs have now got 2 points out of the last 9. That kind of form is, I can't say I'm in a turn. Surrounded by Mr. Heat. You, as a Spurs fan, you've got to be thinking, no, we can't, because Arsenal have been so dreadful, so inconsistent. How can you say we're dreadful when we're 3rd in the league, possibly pushing for 2nd?
Oh, you're getting brainwashed by our fans, Danny.
So inconsistent. When the pressure is on, we're being inconsistent. Nothing to play for. Oh, look, we're putting a run of games together. And it's so typically Arsenal. But the thing about today, Forster was unlucky, but he's such a good goalkeeper, and he's still learning, and so I forgive him that. But Davis, 2 goals this season, is it? And then none last season, and 2 the season before that from what I was looking at. And Tadic, what a player he's turning out to be in the last few games. Is he? Do you expect him to stay at the club next season?
I do, because no one appreciates someone that can set up a goal, as Arsenal fans can attest to with Ozil. Great player, and he does go missing on occasion, but no one cares. It doesn't matter how many assists you get, no one looks at you. So I'm perfectly happy with that. No problems with that. He's a damn good player, and I'm glad we have him.
Breaking news: Steven Gerrard has just scored a goal for LA Galaxy.
Is he 2nd or 3rd of the season? 2nd, I think, of the season. He scored at least 1.
It's a good goal, actually.
But you look at the number of total shots today. There was 20 shots for for Spurs, and they had, I've pressed the wrong button. They are their 20. They had 6 on target. Southampton had 10, and they had 2 on target. So yeah, that's
They seem to wilt. I agree with Ross. They started pretty well, and then just they seem to really wilt. And
let's just hope it's really hot next Sunday.
yeah,
really,
absolutely.
Really hot.
But of course, next Sunday could be academic if, as we said before, if Sunderland get that victory and Newcastle got nothing to play for.
They'll still do it.
It's a toughie, isn't
Don't
it?
we all my fireworks?
I suppose from a neutral's point of view, you almost want Sunderland to draw on Wednesday, Norwich to win, and then that would leave all of them quite close in the final game, wouldn't it? Because it would.
I think the other thing you got to remember with that game though is that this happens with every relegated team. They always do it when the pressure's off and they think, "Oh, all right, fine, we're done now." That's when they turn up. Always happens. Like, every Premier League season I can think of, the team that finishes bottom gets something from the last game because they just go, right, just make sure the fans know that you're trying. And I wouldn't write Newcastle off next week. I'm not sure they'll win it, but I'm certainly not saying that they're dead rubber and that it's going to be an easy Tottenham win. I mean, obviously I could be completely wrong. It depends how annoyed Tottenham are when they turn up next week. But I still think there's a lot in it for Newcastle, even if they are down. So I wouldn't write off a possible shock there.
And I'm going to miss the last game of the season because I've been held at knife point to go to a bloody christening.
You'll be back in time. It'll be fine. It'll all be fine.
Bloody better be, otherwise Sexy Frank is going to get a smack bum.
Well, that was a beautifully segued, Ross, actually, because you're saying about
I thought you were going to say beautifully segued into Frank's bum.
Oh no, that would
he
be.
Did that to his wife.
It's very PG. No, segued into the idea that this Newcastle game with Spurs could have nothing riding on it, because of course it could have something riding on it depending on what Arsenal do on the final day. And Danny, I'll start with you on this one. City of Manchester Stadium. There's 2 subplots really to this game. Arsenal coming into it 3 points clear of City, knowing that a win or a draw would all but guarantee the top 4 trophy, as it were. And City knowing really that it's kind of win or bust for them to be 100% sure of qualification. It ended 2-2. This has got to be a result that favours Arsenal a lot more than City, surely.
So yeah, City. I mean, bringing on Yaya though in the bottom and just didn't look like he could be bothered. I thought Aguero was all over the place, brilliant. He was attacking everywhere, and he seemed to be, apart from De Bruyne, he's the only other one playing a Man City shirt that could really be bothered. Which is, you think some of the money they're on, and I know the bloke Fernandinho, one of the 2 Fs, they got man of the match and then got booked. Oh, Fernandinho, yeah. So then he got a booking straight after that. But you could tell at the end they were angry with their late fouls they were going in. I think didn't one player did 3 fouls that he could have been booked for all 3 and didn't get booked for any of them.
Yeah, they did sort of give off that frustrated kind of, why can't we just score? Kind of. Yeah, I think it was.
He had quite a good game, actually. He looked like a bit of a killer. He had a touch of the John Welsh's with the beard going on.
Yes.
It looked very good. It was an interesting game. I was on a Skype call to Mr. Welsh Justice for the entire game, and so I didn't have the volume on. And it was I quite enjoyed it. I thought the thing that, as an Arsenal fan, that I liked, I give the French lamppost plenty of grief, but when he's allowed to play as a striker, which he was today, I thought he played immensely. He got an assist and he got a goal, which you can't really ask for much more than that. And then when Welbeck went off, Iwobi went out wide left, and then they brought on Wilshere to play a Ramsey, Wilshere, El Neni central midfield 3. And rather than having one behind the striker, they were all taking it in turns. You had Ramsey on the left, Wilshere in the middle, El Neni on the right, and each one of them would go forward, and then the other 2 would close in and let him do his stuff, and then he'd come back into the pack. They'd make 3 in a row, and at one point all 3 were running forward at the same time. And I thought, actually, I quite like the look of that, kind of playing like a 4-3, 2 wide, one up front, and stuff like that, because all 3 of them seem to be creative. All 3 of them like to get forward, and I don't know if you've noticed, but no, of course you've noticed. You're an Arsenal fan. Coquelin hasn't been starting lately. Now,
No.
I don't know if that's Wenger trying out new stuff because the season's coming up, this new season coming up, and trying out new formations, because at times this one doesn't work. And so Giroud, well done to Giroud. That just shows what he can do when he isn't made to track back, to cover at right back, to be there to clear for corners, to track back into midfield. He's a striker. Let him be a striker and he'll do all right.
You heard it here first, boys and girls. That is Danny trying to convince Arsenal fans that Arsene Wenger does do tactics and indeed try things. Who'd have thought?
Do you think he did?
Who'd have thought?
Did you like that today?
I did. I actually brought it up on another medium that I host, which you'll be aware of, and we were talking about it. We were saying that Coquelin's not been in the side, and we feel that Ramsey was better today, playing in a deeper role, and he seemed to get a lot more tackles and blocks in. We should mention Jack Wilshere, of course, coming on for a good chunk of the game when Danny Welbeck was unfortunately hobbled off with what appears to be a meniscus tear, which could rule him out of the Euros, which is a great shame for a player who's really has
meniscus.
Worked his bits off to get to where he is. Looks like he is going to miss the Euros. And before we go back,
good for Arsenal.
Oh, well, yeah, in a weird way, yeah. But before we go back to City, Ross, I want to ask you something about another Arsenal player, that being Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain. A lot of talk this week. He had a setback in training with a knee injury himself, which is going to rule him out of the Euros, another 6 to 8 week injury by the sounds of it. There's a lot of talk about him and Theo Walcott would both go, would one or the other go. Arsene Wenger all but confirmed that Oxlade-Chamberlain would stay this week. I just wanted to get, from your perspective, we do have a lot of Arsenal listeners and indeed England listeners. What's your sort of take on Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain as a man who saw him come through the ranks at Southampton? And do you think that his future is in a different position than this sort of wide role that Arsenal have used him in?
I mean, Chamberlain is a bit of a weird one for me because I was ball boying the game where he debuted. I think it was Huddersfield. And he came on late on, and I remember watching him from the touchline, and he just bolted down the wing. He had this incredible pace for a 16-year-old kid, off like lightning, and he put in a really good ball as well. And then we watched him for about 6 months before he moved on to Arsenal, and in that time he scored some very, very silky goals from out wide. His inside forward play was very good back then, and he just looked like a little teenager that just wanted to run and play his favourite sport. You know, he looked like he was really up for it. Since he's gone to Arsenal, I understand completely he's been unlucky with injuries, and you can't throw in a kid as young as he was when he first moved to you straight into the mix at his age. But I think he has suffered from a certain degree of lack of exposure. You know, it's all well and good teams like Arsenal and Chelsea and other clubs as well going in for these young players. In Arsenal's case, like Chamberlain, like Chambers. And, you know, it's great that you're buying these kinds of players, but you've got to play them. You've got to give them the platform to develop. And I don't feel like Chamberlain ever got that, whether it was because of decisions at Arsenal or because of injury or whatever. He hasn't had that platform to develop on. And right now, I think the best thing for him is a loan deal. And I think, Jose Font has already said that he's spoken to Chamberlain about maybe him coming back here for a season, which I think would be beneficial for everyone. But I still think he's a fantastic player. You know, he plays for England and he looks like a proper little talent. I still remember him scoring that goal against Brazil away in their very famous stadium, the name of which completely eludes me.
The Maracanã.
That's the one. I still think he's got a huge future. And the other thing I should say, obviously, is if you don't know, Southampton graduates, as they come through, they don't just get taught one position. The graduate scheme demands that you play at least two. Chamberlain was taught winger and central midfield. And whenever I see him play central midfield for Arsenal, I see that as his future role. But he's still got the pace and he's still young enough. And I think at this point, after the way his career's gone, he's still going to want to run. He's still going to want to try for it. I think there's no reason you can't play him on the wing at the moment. But as he gets older, I think his position will be central midfield. But as for what to do with him right now, the idea of selling him, I think is mad. You know, you've got a really, really good player on your hands, as we all knew from the 6 months that we watched him. You know, I think if you're desperate to see him develop, then you either say, right, he's playing and, you know, we'll give him 6 months, no matter how good or bad he does, we give him 6 months and here he is, this is his position, or you send him out on loan and you see how he does.
Yeah, agree. And whether you like or dislike Theo Walcott, he's had a number of years to impress and largely hasn't, whereas Oxlade-Chamberlain, I think, really, I can't actually think of a whole season where he's been fully fit and had the opportunity to impress. So I agree with you. I think you stick by him for at least another 12, 18 months. But as you say, a loan deal might be a good way forward. Before we leave this game, let's just get sort of a thought from both of you on Man City. Ross, you and I have talked about the Guardiola effect, so we don't need to go over old ground. But there's a real concern here that you know Man City could miss out on the Champions League, which would be I genuinely think catastrophic. I mean, Guardiola is going to be a pull for players, and whether they're in Europe or not. I think that's obvious. Players will come because they want to play for him. But I mean, the idea that a Champions League semi-finalist could not make the competition, it surely sets back Project City quite a lot. And I just have a feeling they're not going to make it. And if Man United win at West Ham, the pressure's really on. I just want to get both of your quick thoughts on what you think will happen. Ross, I'll start with you. I mean, do you think City will be able to do it because the momentum isn't with them anymore, is it?
I think there's a lot that goes into the City problem as of right now. One thing that I would highlight is the end of the game when Pellegrini came back out onto the field to say goodbye to the City fans at the Etihad, and the whole stadium emptied, and barely anyone stayed to say goodbye to Pellegrini, who, regardless of who's coming next, has been one of the great Manchester City managers. I don't think that helps. I think the fans and the players feel disappointed about the Champions League. I think there's a feeling of discontent over the title being so far gone. There's so much that goes into this, and Champions League is not safe whatsoever. I personally don't think they'll fall out. I mean, I might be biased because I'm hoping for a draw between Man United and West Ham during the week because of our personal European targets. But I don't feel like they will fall out. I think they'll probably just kind of stay in with a bit of a whimper. But at the same time, if they fall out, that's huge. You know, that's absolutely huge. And I think Pep is finally going to a job that is going to test him, because I'm a fan of Pep, but it's got to be said that at Barcelona, anyone can win with Barcelona. I think he did fantastic with Barcelona. Don't get me wrong, but he was playing in a league where teams go away to the new camp and go, right, let's sit back and let's try and keep them out, and they still lose 5-0. He then goes to Bayern Munich, where a team goes away to the Allianz and they say, right, let's not concede 5, let's just sit back and keep them out, and they still concede 5. He comes to the Premier League, and Manchester City will not put 5 past every team like they do in Spain and in Germany. He will have to try and change things about to be able to handle a team like Burnley, to be able to handle a team like Sunderland or whoever else stays up. And I think it's going to be very tricky for him. Now, if he can't get the players in because the Champions League isn't a thing, it's going to be even harder for him. And Manchester City are going to be a fantastic case study next season, regardless of what happens.
Yeah, well said, well said. And Danny, do you share Russ's views? I mean, as I say, Manchester United have got the pressure on them. It's not going to be easy for them to win at West Ham on Wednesday, but they have done it, of course, before in the FA Cup. They did rest a couple of players, but we're not sure about Martial's injury yet, because he forced him to miss the game at Norwich yesterday. But you'll feel that he'll be back in if fit, and of course Rashford, who got the winner, could be back. So a win in that game really puts the pressure on City to go and get a win on the final day. Are you confident that they will still make the Champions League? I mean, they finish away at Swansea, who, as we've highlighted before, have all of a sudden found a bit of form.
Yeah, going to Swansea is never an easy thing. They're on a hell of a run of form. The manager, as we were saying earlier, might be in fear of his job, and so he's going to be trying to make sure that they do win the game. And I mean, I think if Man City get 1 point, then they're probably going to stand a bloody good chance of staying in there, because their goal difference is 17 better than Man United. So if they only get 1 point and then Man United win one, but Man United are so inconsistent. I mean, they've only scored 44 goals this season, and to look at that, I mean, Bournemouth are 16th in the league. Sunderland, they've only scored 43. They've scored 1 more goal than Sunderland, and look at all the money they've got at Man United. I think Man City is safe. Man United will mess it up somehow, but yeah, it may only be that they're going to go to Swansea and get a point, but it's going to be hard for them. But it's just amazing that you think that Man City, of all that money they've got, they've lost 10 games all season. Chelsea, worst season ever, they've only lost 12 games. That's just a matter of 2 games, and there's a load more draws and things like that have gone on, but yeah, it's weird. It definitely is strange. How can that be? They've lost 10 and they've lost 12.
Man City
2,
have lost 10.
4, 5, 6.
Chelsea
Yeah,
have lost
maybe.
12. Yeah.
Yeah, doesn't seem. But then there's an 18-point gap between the two of them.
It's amazing, isn't it?
2 more. Tables don't lie, do they?
No.
But they are in. I mean, Man United could do it. They've got the players. It's a confidence issue with the players at Man United, because they know they don't play attacking football as the 44 goals in the season. says.
Yeah.
But if I was playing for Man United and I had Van Gaal as my manager, he wouldn't fill me full of confidence when they have got enough players to play some of the most attacking flair football in the league. They've got some brilliant players there. But the sooner, I think, for them, the sooner Van Gaal's out, the better. But yeah, I think Man City, nailed on to finish fourth.
Yep,
Just going to throw it out there. The fact that Fellaini is starting over Schneiderlin most of the times this season is a big factor in why Man United are where they are.
Do you think Schneiderlin will leave?
I don't know. If he does, he's more than welcome back here. But
for European football?
I think it's insane that Schneiderlin was bought for that much money and Fellaini gets it ahead of him. I think that spells out a lot of the problems Man United have had personally.
Yeah. Certainly, I don't think he was I don't know whether he was a Van Gaal signing or not. He didn't seem to be, but who knows with what goes on with Woodward and whatnot. But I have a feeling West Ham will actually end up beating United. So I'm kind of with you both. I think City will squeak in. But it will ultimately come down to the final game where Arsenal host Aston Villa. Manchester City go at Swansea, and Arsenal could only need a draw. But I think they really should be aiming to beat Villa, to be perfectly honest. We will finish our Premier League roundup. I should just mention Liverpool winning 2-0 at home to Watford. Not a lot to be said, really. Kind of a dead rubber game. Joe Allen and Roberto Firmino with the goals. But we'll finish with Leicester, the champions. They got the trophy. There was something kind of quite nice about seeing a player like Wes Morgan with the most uncontrollable smile on his face as he sort of realised he was about to lift the Premier League trophy. Just give you guys both a quick opportunity to say a few words. I mean, it's all been said, let's be honest. Every journalist, every person in the world has covered this, seemingly every TV channel. But I want to get your guys' quick thoughts on it. Leicester winning 3-1 to secure the sort of the perfect party atmosphere. 2 goals from Vardy and a missed penalty, and goal from King and one back from Morales. Ross, what do you want to say about Leicester that's maybe not already been said, or anything you want to sort of touch on personally, maybe Ranieri?
First thing I'd say is not about Leicester, it's about Everton. They were awful. Any other team had beaten them by that scoreline. If it was in any other event, then Everton would be absolutely rinsed in the papers, and they would be well worthy of it as well because they were awful. As for Leicester, I mean, as a Southampton fan, it kind of makes me feel what if about the team we had a couple of seasons back. What if Ricky and Adam and Dejan and Morgan and Luke and Callum had stayed? Because that team didn't win that league because of incredible cogs. They won that because it was an incredible watch that they made, and it's incredible that they've done it. The title looks fantastic with those blue and gold tassels on the side, and I'm not sure if we'll ever see anything like it again, but it gives great inspiration to me as a Southampton fan, to the players, to every team that's watching them, to every manager that thinks that they're never going to win the league after being sacked by one of the big clubs, to every player that's in non-league and doesn't think they're going to be able to finally get their break. It's just such a fantastic story, and whether we'll see anything like it again or not is to be seen. But this season has created memories that we as football fans will never forget, and I thank Leicester for it because it's been fantastic to watch.
Amazing, yeah. And Danny, from Andrea Bocelli to party streamers, to masks, to free booze, to crisps, to pizza, to Ranieri. And it has to be said, there's been none of this Jose Mourinho mind games, eye gouging, none of this sort of baiting of the managers, none of the Ferguson stoppage time or referee influences. Ranieri just seems like a bloody nice bloke, and we will be doing a very special podcast, which I will promote at the end of this podcast with somebody who knows Leicester very well. But do you want to say a little bit about Ranieri as a man who's followed the history of football, and you of course know him quite well from previous stints at Chelsea and indeed in the Italian game?
Yeah, he's managed 2 of my teams, Atletico Madrid and Inter Milan. Neither of which he did magnificent. I think he didn't get much time, like he doesn't get much time. I know he's managed 14 clubs now. But I remember when we were talking about it, I mean, he's just been sacked by Greece after they lost to the Faroe Islands or some really bad team. And he managed them 4 games, no wins, 1 draw and 3 losses. And they just went, that's it, you're sacked. He was only there for 6 months. And then I think he had about another 6-8 months off. And then Leicester gave him the job. And I remember thinking at the time, nah, that's Leicester down. Although he's a lovely man, he was known as the Tinker Man, which he doesn't do anymore. But it's just fantastic. He's such a nice bloke, and our friend Simon said he's got so much time for everybody. He's such a lovely bloke, and I thought it was really nice the way that Botticelli. I didn't know Botticelli was blind, but then the way that he had given him his elbow as they walked up onto stage, and then you just saw him when Botticelli, was it Botticelli or Bocelli?
Yeah,
the
Bocelli.
singer, when the
Yes.
singer was singing his song, you could see Ranieri there folding his coat up like it was your mum when you've come in out of the rain. I thought that was just a really nice thing, and I think there was 5 busloads of Italian fans that have come over from Italy just to see him play, and Leicester are going to get so many new followers and new fans, and it's just a shot in the arm for Premier League football, which has been so money driven for so many years. It's just, I mean, I'm very apathetic about Premier League football. We all know that I like a little bit of Peterborough, and sometimes I just think, football is just, the money is killing football, and hopefully maybe teams will realise that you don't have to go and spend an absolute fortune and put money before everything. Although I did think it was a little bit strange at the end of it, where the owner of the club held on to that trophy for longer than anybody else had that trophy.
He was
and they had
walking
about
it,
6 people walking behind him holding up a big portrait of someone. I don't know if it was him or someone said it might have been, is he Sri Lankan? Or Malaysian?
Malaysian, aren't they?
Malaysian.
Yeah.
It might have been the Malaysian Prime Minister, but he wouldn't let go of that trophy, would he?
No.
He had a firm grip on that.
He did.
And I don't think he realises that, no, it's the manager and the players that hold the trophy. You never saw David Dean or any of that lot holding it for Arsenal on the 3 times that we've won the Premier League trophy and traipsing it around the ground, or Lord Hillwood or any of those other people that were around at the time. So I thought that was a little bit weird, but there again, let them get away with whatever they want, because it's fantastic to see what they've done. But I really I wanted to see Kasper Schmeichel go up and take one of those penalties.
Oh yeah,
absolutely brilliant. And I wasn't the only one to say it, because I thought it, because a couple of you said it on Twitter. But,
there was talk.
Nice.
There was talk that they might let him. I think if they had got another pen, they probably would have. But yeah, no. I mean, I love the quote of Ranieri that's come out since, and they said about the players, and they were talking about the players that he wanted to retain, and they said, what would you say about certain players keeping, like Kante and Mahrez and Vardy and that, and he just said, I hope that they stay. I want them to stay for another season. I tell them that they make mistakes if they leave, and if they want to go, they go, because I only want players here who want to play for Leicester. And I thought that's quite refreshing that he'd be willing just to let them go if they didn't.
Oh God, you pause, and I think you finished.
Sorry.
Okay, you finished?
Yes.
Right, my final thing on Leicester. Andy King, what a man. He has been with them for 330 games. He's won League One, the Championship, and now the Premier League. People in the future, write that down, because that is going to be a football question in a pub quiz.
Stat Attack.
I don't know anybody else that has done that.
And speaking of Stat Attack, Ross has just informed us all as well. First time in 25 years in English football history that both the defending champions and runners-up failed to qualify for the Champions League. There you go. There's a stat for you as well.
But it's brilliant. What do we think they'll do next season?
Top 10.
I think they might struggle.
I'm going to put money on them getting relegated. If it's 5,000 to 1, I'm putting a tenner on it. I don't think they will.
I think they might struggle, but a lot of it will depend on not just who they retain, but who they bring in. Because I think Ranieri has made it clear that he only wants to bring in players, as he said, that fit the ethos and the system. And they're going to be the envy of a lot of clubs, and with Champions League to balance as well. It's going to be a whole new test, but
Yeah, got to stress for Leicester fans, you're in for a hell of a summer.
Oh god, yeah.
Been through it myself with Southampton a couple of seasons back. You get one good sniff of the big time, and all the big clubs go, "Oh, hello, didn't see you there. Thank you very much," and just everyone goes. It's the way it happens, and I think the thing you got to remember, if you're a Leicester fan, and if it happens, you just got to remember that there are clubs around like Southampton that can attest that it's just a passing storm. It gets better once the summer's finished. It does get better.
Yeah,
they did it without some of their most expensive players. You had the young is it not Kramaric?
Kramaric.
Newcastle.
Yeah, who's it?
Kramaric.
Kramaric.
He's on loan. They paid about 9 million for him, and then Gökhan Inla, he's played 3 games, hardly any games. He cost them 5 or 6 million.
Yep.
They've had quite a few of their most expensive players haven't even got a sniff.
No.
Here's actually another 2 Leicester stories for you that will go down in history. First player to leave Southampton and then win the Premier League, Nathan Dyer, because he did it with Leicester.
Yeah.
And Richie De Gea won both the Premier League medal and the Championship medal.
Yes.
So,
Brilliant. That's a hell of an achievement. How many games did he play for Leicester, though?
Only a couple at the start of the season, I think. But I think he sneaks in because he made a couple of sub appearances. But I think he was loaned out in January. If
10.
that rings a bell.
I'll go and have a look. He's playing for Burnley, obviously.
Borough, I think.
Borough, Middlesbrough, yeah.
Right.
I mean, whatever way you look at it, whether you're a fan or not, I mean,
he's not had a bad season.
It's an amazing achievement, just for the whole and the city and everything that goes with it. And even now, it sounds surreal. Let's be honest, it really does, and it'll be very interesting to see what the likes of
12 games.
12 games. There you go. So
there's and 10 for Middlesbrough.
And can you imagine the likes of Real Madrid and Barcelona and Bayern Munich rocking up at the King Power? Jesus, it's gonna be fun.
They're going to hope they stick to 4-4-2 with plenty of elbows because they're not going to like it up them.
Nope, they really aren't.
Good
right.
luck to them.
That'll wrap us for the Premier League. We are going to do a very quick whistle-stop tour of Championship ups and downs, League One ups and downs, League Two ups and downs, because they will come to the end. Before we do that, though, we will quickly run through mine and Ross's predictions. Ross, I went with last week Norwich 1, United 2. And Man United won 1-0. You went for
1-0 United.
So we both got that one kind of right. I went Bournemouth 1, West Brom 1, which was bang on. You went for
2-0 Bournemouth.
We both went for Newcastle win. I went 2-1 at Villa.
So did I.
And it was 0-0. Crystal Palace 1, Stoke 1 I went with. I ended up 2-1 to Palace. And you went for
0-0.
I both got that one wrong. Sunderland 1, Chelsea 1. Both wrong on this one, I think.
Yeah, I had Chelsea 2-0.
Nightmare. West Ham 4, Swansea 1. Got that the wrong way round, didn't I?
I had 2-2 myself.
Closer. Leicester 2, Everton 1 I had. 1 goal out, 3-1 in the end. You had
2-0 Leicester.
2-0. Spurs 1, Southampton 1 I got wrong. You have already covered. You got it bang on.
Bang on.
Liverpool 3, Watford 1 I went for. It was 2-0 Liverpool. You went for
2-0 Liverpool.
2, correct. And finally I went with Man City 1, Arsenal 1. It ended 2-2, so you got a draw out of it. And you went for
1-1.
1-1. So we weren't far away then, were we, really?
No, I'm happy with my... how many is that? 1, 2, 3. I'm happy with my 3.
Yeah, I got 1 bang on score and a couple right. So just for a laugh, we'll probably do it again this week off air. But what we'll do is we'll do it off air and we'll post on our Twitter feed what we've gone for and see how wrong we get it, because the last day of the season is usually a bit mental. But we got a couple of midweek fixtures. West Ham Man United we touched on, Sunderland Everton we touched on, Norwich Watford we touched on, also Liverpool Chelsea, which has just gone completely under the radar because no one really cares. Amazing to think that, but that's on Wednesday. And then the final game of the season, which we will of course be across this time next week: Arsenal Aston Villa, Manchester United Bournemouth, Southampton Crystal Palace, Chelsea Leicester, West Brom Liverpool, Swansea Man City, Everton Norwich, Watford Sunderland, Newcastle Spurs, and Stoke West Ham. In theory, nothing could be up for grabs come the end of the season, but we shall see. So stay tuned. If anything, it looks like the race for third or fourth could be the only thing up for grabs, so we shall see. Right. Ross, do you want to quickly run us through what happened on Championship-wise? And then we'll come down to Leagues 1 and League 2. We have champions and runners-up, therefore 2 new Premier League sides coming in, and then we can run through the playoffs.
So yes, we have champions now of the Championship. We have Burnley as our champions now, 93 points. They ended 4 points clear of Middlesbrough in second, because Middlesbrough and Brighton ended with a 1-1 draw. Entertaining game, not the best quality because both teams were kind of just scrapping for it, but still very entertaining. Middlesbrough go up in second place. They finish 89 points with 32 goal difference, and Brighton miss out because of a -2 compared to Middlesbrough's 32. So they have that sounds stupid. Hang on, Brighton have +30. Let's not pretend they have -2. They wouldn't be in the playoffs if they had -2. they end with 30.
Peterborough.
Well, yeah, of course they would, but Peterborough are a special case, aren't
Do you know that Middlesbrough finished the season with 4 draws?
they? They did, yeah.
So jammy.
Stumbled over the line, and I think Kris and I both agreed last week that if they were in the playoffs, then neither of us really particularly fancied them for the playoffs. I don't think they had the bottle for it, but
Are we going to talk about who we think is going to win the playoffs?
We certainly will in a second. The Brighton now finishing third means that our playoffs are set. So our playoffs now are Sheffield Wednesday versus Brighton and Derby versus Hull. So anyone likes to put forward, yes, anyone likes to put forward who they think is going to go up, because I think you could just throw a dart and get it right.
I think I agree with you. Throwing a dart is probably right, but with Danny, I kind of want to see Brighton because they've really entertained me, and I like Chris Hughton. I know that's sacrilege as an Arsenal fan, but
No, I like him. That'll be the third time he's got a team promoted.
yeah,
He'll be
but
the only team that keeps hold of him as well.
I do have a real soft spot for Sheffield Wednesday.
We know
Hull,
why you do.
well, not just for our good friend Natalie, but they're just a proper like old fashioned. I still think of the David Hurst days and the Dan Petrescu days and the Pavel Srnicek days. God rest his soul.
Can they afford the stadium? They'll have to upgrade their stadium because the other three have all got new stadiums.
I think they probably would.
Hurst was 1,000,000 years old.
Talking to Natalie about that, actually, I think she was saying that they are planning to renovate, and they've got a good manager in Carlos Carvajal, and I really do think they are set up. They've got some very good players down there, and they always entertain me. And I think they play good football, and it would just be a really classic name back in the Premier League, Danny. You'll know what I mean by that. Sort of the Forest, the Coventries, Sheffield Wednesday belong in that company, in my opinion. And it'd just be nice to see those blue and white stripes. It is an old-fashioned ground. I would like to see them back, but it's tough. Hull, I've got nothing against Steve Bruce. I like Steve Bruce, but they've had a go. Yeah, you like someone new, and the other team is Derby, who for me. Again, nothing against Derby, nothing against if we have any Derby fans listening, nothing against you guys, but I do find it a bit of a clown car club at the moment. The whole money thing, the app
25 million
thing, and
spent.
yeah, something doesn't sit right with me. So heart says Sheffield Wednesday, head says Brighton, so it'll probably be Hull or Derby. What do you think?
They can't be Hull or Derby because they're playing each other.
Oh no, they can't be. Well, it could be one of the two, is what I mean.
I thought you meant in the they'll get promoted.
Who do you think, Danny?
You're confusing me now. Brighton. There you go.
You think?
That's as simple. My heart and my shoes and my soul and my brain all say Brighton.
And Ross?
I would love to see Sheffield Wednesday go up. I think that they are a really good club, and I think that they are going to outgrow the Championship if they stay in it next season. But I think they still have to stay in it and outgrow it, because if they go up, they're not going to be ready for it, and I think they are going to get battered. So I wouldn't like to see that happen to a club that I really do like. So as much as I'd love to see them up, my gut is telling me Hull City. I think that they've got the most balanced squad for a playoff final. And I think that they've had something that Brighton haven't had, which is time to prepare for the playoffs. Brighton went into that game on Saturday thinking we could go up today, and then by the time they went to bed, they were, damn, we didn't go up today. Now we've got to go through the playoffs. Hull knew that 5-6 weeks ago, so they've been getting ready for this, and I think it's in their hands personally. But again, you could throw a dart and get this right. There's so much quality in those four teams, so it could go any which way.
Plus, I think another thing to take into consideration is the how can I say this politely? When you get to Wembley and you're in awe of the situation, Hull most of those players played in the FA Cup final.
Very true.
Those other three teams are going to go, wow, I'm playing at Wembley. Oh, wow, this is amazing. How politely did I put that?
Very politely.
You know what I was thinking, though.
Oh, I knew exactly what you were thinking. And when is it these playoffs start? Is it as early as next week?
Yes, it is. I believe. Yes, the first one's Friday. Sheffield Wednesday versus Brighton is on Friday, and then on Saturday you've got Derby versus Hull, and then Monday, Monday the 16th. This is. You've then got the reverse fixture of Brighton and Sheffield Wednesday, and the Tuesday you then have Hull and Derby. So it's going to be a very quick turnaround.
I love the way the league do this, where they have over the bank holiday weekend we have the Championship on one day, then League 1 on the next day, and on the bank holiday Monday you have the League 1, and I watch all of them all on Wembley. And
Me too.
You've had some classic games over the years with that.
Yeah.
I really look forward to it, and it's a good way to all those teams to get a lot of money as well.
Yeah, and of course the team that finishes sixth could end up going up, which is always bizarre, but I love it.
It's happened quite a few times, because if you look at Sheffield Wednesday, they finished 15 points behind Brighton.
Which is bizarre, but cool. Either way.
You get those teams like QPR that didn't deserve to go up and still managed to sneak it. It's always good fun, the playoffs.
Bobby Zamora. What about Leagues 1 and 2? They both wrapped up. Who are the champions? Who are going up? And who are in the playoffs?
Wigan are your champions of League 1. I think that was all but confirmed last week, but they managed to do it. Regardless of their result this week. I think they got hammered, didn't they, by Barnsley? It ended about 4-1. Yeah, Barnsley managed to beat them 4-1. But they go up as champions because of the results elsewhere. Burton go up as well, and I am very much looking forward to seeing how Burton do in the Championship, because I don't see them as a goal-scoring team under Clough. They just seem to eke out results, and I think it's a great indicator that they were playing against Doncaster Rovers on the weekend, who entered the game with 9 men because they had 2 injuries and made all their substitutes, and the game still ended 0-0. So I am fascinated to see how Burton do in the Championship, because I'm not sure that they're going to have the attacking prowess of it, but they might just have the defensiveness. So I'm very interested to see how they do. The playoffs are sorted as well. You have Walsall in 3rd, Millwall in 4th, Bradford in 5th, and Barnsley, because of that 4-1 away win against Wigan, managed to sneak 6th. They just beat Scunthorpe to 6th place, which was a fantastic story for Scunthorpe. Coventry and Gillingham also just managed to miss out as well. So it's Walsall versus Barnsley and Millwall versus Bradford. And obviously, the relegation zones are sorted as well. The 4 teams now going down: Crewe Alexandra, Colchester United, Blackpool, and Doncaster Rovers, who I think have been on the cards for about 6 months now. So that's League One sorted. Any predictions for who's coming up? Walsall, Millwall, Bradford, or Barnsley?
I fancy Millwall. I do fancy Millwall. Something about them. Don't know whether it's the name. Don't know whether it's the way they play. Don't know if that's that stadium. I just have a feeling, and there's nothing in the form book that says otherwise. I just think Millwall. Danny?
Firstly, Scunthorpe, they ended the season with 6 straight wins, 7 wins from 8 games. So, a nod of the hat or the head, whichever, or wear a hat on your head and nod. I'd like to see Bradford go up, because Arsenal fans have a bit of an affinity with Bradford.
Sure.
And I always quite like them. They've got a brilliant podcast, and which is, I can't remember what it's called.
Bantam's Banter.
Oh, there they go. I don't like Millwall. Don't want them to go up. Walsall, well, they sacked Paul Merson, so I don't want them to go up. Barnsley, that's matey boy off of TalkSport, Adrian Durham, and...
Moose?
No, the Northerner.
Oh, Darren Goff.
That's him. He supports them. I don't want to see those go up. I don't really care about that league. I'm probably going to go with Bradford, but I do think it's weird that Burton, Nigel Clough took Burton into the league, and then he let them get on with it as he went off to Derby, and did he go Sheffield United?
Yep.
And then he's come back, gotten promoted back to to the Championship, and like Ross was saying, they are a tiny club. They are going to get absolutely mullered in the Championship next season, which means they'll win it.
Yeah.
Premier League this time next year. How about Blackpool, though? I was saying before the show that this time 5 years ago, Blackpool were just relegated from the Premier League, and now look at them. Peterborough relegated them today, and down to the 4th tier of English football.
And I'll say one thing as well. If he's still there, I'm pretty sure he is. If Barnsley don't go up, somebody will take Conor Hurricane, because he's a hell of a player. I'll just say that at this juncture.
Did he play in France?
No, he played for Plymouth Argyle, but he's come on leaps and bounds since he joined Barnsley. So, and speaking of Plymouth Argyle, what a segue! That was seamless. League 2. We have indeed teams going up. There was drama, was there not, Ross, on the final day with Bristol Rovers, and we have what is known as the Port Derby, is it? What is it they call it? Plymouth and
it's the Dockyard Derby.
Dockyard Derby, yes.
Yeah,
so,
don't get me started on those nicknames. We're called the El Clasicoast, apparently. That can go away as well.
It's not as bad as
terrible, isn't it?
not as bad as the one in Germany between Hoffenheim and who is it? Hoffenheim and I want to say Stuttgart. It's called El Plastico. Brilliant.
No,
it's Leverkusen. So who have we got going up from League 2 and who are going down?
Right, let's start with the confirms then that we knew a couple of weeks ago. York City finished bottom on 34 points. Dagenham and Redbridge also finished bottom on 34 points. Northampton Town went up as your champions, 99 points. Frankly, their season was done about a month ago, so they haven't really been playing all that much the past couple of games, but they managed to end with a win, so that's nice. The 2 teams that are going up, now the situation going into the final game for League 2 was there were 3 teams that could still go up automatically, which were Accrington Stanley, Oxford United and Bristol Rovers. All Accrington Stanley needed to do was get a point, and they would have gone up automatically. Unfortunately, they needed to win, excuse me. They ended up drawing 0-0. The point was not enough because of the goal difference. Bristol Rovers go up on 85 points, and Oxford go up second in 86. Personally, I think that's how it should have been. I think Bristol Rovers, Oxford and Northampton have been fantastic in League 2 this season, and as much as I would have loved to have seen Accrington Stanley go up, not only do they still obviously have the chance because they are now in the playoffs, but I just think that they were in the wrong place at the wrong time with Bristol and Oxford doing so well this season. As for the playoffs, they are now sorted as well. It is Accrington Stanley in 4th, Plymouth Argyle in 5th, Portsmouth in 6th and Wimbledon in 7th. So your playoffs are Accrington Stanley versus AFC Wimbledon and Plymouth versus Portsmouth. So I'm going to guess, Kris, that you want Plymouth out of that lot.
Yes. I mean, I don't follow support as such, but from the local geographic perspective, and also has to be said that, as you all know, Ross, Plymouth were not so long ago a Championship side under Ian Holloway pushing for the Premier League, and then ended up essentially selling Holloway a dream and refusing to buy the players that he said they needed to make the playoffs that year, and they got rid of Ebanks Blake, and the rest is history. So I think it'd be nice. They've got a good manager in Derek Adams. They've rebuilt. There's a lot of good young players down there, and for the area, the idea of a trip of several thousand Janners going up to Wembley is quite entertaining, and it would do wonders for the club they're looking to expand Home Park and
Would they sail there up the Thames?
possibly in a big galleon, as would Portsmouth no less. But yeah, it'd be nice for Plymouth. Slight soft spot for AFC Wimbledon for obvious reasons. But no, I'd have to stick my allegiances behind the Pilgrims. Danny, what about you?
There's a couple of things that is intriguing about this. Personally, I want to see a Portsmouth-Wimbledon final. I like AFC Wimbledon. Plus, McDon's, the stealer of all things Wimbledon, got relegated from the Championship. So these two, again, will be playing each other next season, which is always a bit feisty. Portsmouth, I love what they've done. The way they've come back from nothing, being in the Premier League and winning the FA Cup, to being all the way down there. And the way they're now club-owned and they're doing it properly. And that should be a model for all clubs and all fans to make sure it gets
You
done.
haven't seen them play.
No, they haven't. They're terrible. I don't like Plymouth. I remember when Pete Sheen was made manager. I don't like them. I don't like the kit. The area, I quite like the area. A bit of a sexy accent for the ladies. And and Accrington, I don't like Liverpool, do I? So Accrington and Stanley are the fourth Liverpool team behind Liverpool, Everton, and the mighty Tranmere. Well, I say mighty, not anymore, are they? So yeah, I would like to see a Portsmouth Wimbledon final, so Wimbledon get lots of money, and probably see Portsmouth go up.
If there's any justice, Accrington would be the ones purely based on what could have happened on the final day. But yeah, I'm sticking by Plymouth.
Where did Bristol City finish? Are they even in that league?
Oh, Bristol City, their Championship. They stayed up this year.
Did they?
Yes.
Oh, so there won't be any gas. Is it the Gaslight Derby? What's that one called?
That rings a bell. There's so many bloody names, isn't there? Right in, listeners.
I think you should also give a little nod to the Conference, which is a league I like. Being a Barnet fan, I'm in and out of there.
You can do that, Danny. You can do that now if you like.
Like some pork pies at a Christmas hamper. Cheltenham, 101 points. So York and Dagenham, don't be too disheartened. Cheltenham got relegated last season. They finished 23 out of 24. Forest Green Rovers, who I remember a few years ago, when they were one of the smallest teams in the top flights of the top 5 or 6 tiers of football. They've got a tiny little stadium. If I keep pretending and talking like I know what I'm on about, I'll have a 5,000 capacity stadium. Wow! So they're in the playoffs with Braintree, Grimsby. I remember Grimsby as a Championship team, and Dover. They're the 4 that got through to the playoffs because these are a little way ahead of us already. Because I remember the bloke I'm doing a bio of, Adam Birchall, plays for Dover, and so it's Dover lost to Forest Green 2-1, and Braintree lost to Grimsby 2-1. So it's going to be a Grimsby Forest Green final. Is that played at Wembley? Or no, that's usually I
think it's Wembley.
Ground.
I think it
is Wembley, yeah.
Oh, how good would that be for them?
Pretty sure
I'm really pulling for Grimsby personally because I used to like Grimsby. I remember the first time I ever picked up a Football Manager game, first team I managed was Grimsby Town, and I took them all the way up to the Premier League. And because of that, I love them. So it's a real shame that they're in the blue square Prems that used to be known for as long as they have. So I'm pulling for them personally.
Well, I want Forest Green Rovers. How about you, Kris?
I must admit, Forest Green, yeah, is my kind of pull there, just because they just sound small and nickel, and yeah, no other reason. Just kind of like the idea of it.
Sad for Adam Birchall because he's had a hell of a season in recent years in non-league. I think he scored 45 goals in a season at one point for not Dover. Another team that play in white. Might have been Dover. Yeah,
Hereford?
He's Maidstone now, isn't
Maidstone?
he? What am I on about? He's on loan at Maidstone from Bromley. That's why I like Dover, because he scored 45 goals in a season for them, including 11 in the FA Cup. But yeah, I knew if I'd think about it long enough to get the answer. Oh, it doesn't say. I'll just have a look at Forest Green and see if they've ever been in the league before. And it doesn't say. Their Wikipedia page is surprisingly small with very little information. So yeah, they get my vote. Oh, here we go. No, they've not. They've just been in the conference all these years.
There you go. Well, it'd be nice. It'd be nice, wouldn't it, to
Yes.
give them that sort of league opportunity. But we will keep you across. We will keep you across what happens in these in the coming shows, because we'll be doing sort of probably a season review type of show at some point anyway. So I'm sure we'll be able to bring you up to date with that when all the results are in. But yes, that's everything really. Right, we've got a couple of quick questions, and we have gone very long tonight because there's so much to cover. So let's
It's an hour
just.
and a half.
I know. Where's the time gone?
Oh, there you go, people. I know people are shouting and listening, going, oh, Maidstone are in the playoffs of the Conference South.
Oh,
And
there
that's
we
who
go.
Adam Birchall is with. And I don't even know if they got through to it, but as no one cares, I'm going to look myself and keep quiet.
Knowledge. It's all good. Right, couple of questions. Firstly, Ross, this one was from last week, but we didn't want to leave it out. It's from our good friend Accidental Gooner, all the way in Australia. And she wanted to ask, could you touch on the media's role in stirring the pot? And this comes in reference to the Arsenal protest slash mini protest slash whatever it was last week, placard gate, and there was a couple of ugly scenes after the Man City game again today. So it's obviously carrying on. So did you just want to have a sort of a quick say on the media's role in that, as somebody sort of training to be in that area of expertise or area of employment, if you will?
Yeah, I will do my best to keep this short. But the couple of trade secrets that I can let you in on. When you become a journalist, if there's anyone out there that's interested in becoming a journalist, first lesson, you have to divide yourself into human and journalist. And I don't mean that in a funny, haha, journalists aren't human kind of a way. I mean that in your personal ethics shouldn't impinge on your professional ethics at times. And you have to remember that when especially when I'm talking about stuff like this, because what I think is different to what I as a journalist would think. So you take Arsenal as an example. The protests, for me personally, I think that the protests shouldn't get the same kind of media coverage they do, because it's clearly not going to work. It's a menial story. It's something for Arsenal fans to deal with themselves. I don't think the media helps things by A, focusing on it, and B, talking about it and the title races as much as they do. This country and society in general only really likes to see you, in terms of football, as champions and no one. If you're not champion, then no one cares. So the spotlight is always on, are Arsenal going to be champions? Why did they fail? Why weren't they champions this season? I don't think that helps from a media standpoint. As me, the brother, the son, the Pokemon fan, the Stampton fan, as me, as a journalist, you spin that as much as you can. You always get on the back of that. You say, why aren't we talking more about Arsene Wenger? Why aren't we digging up old quotes from Lee Dixon and Martin Keown about how he was stubborn and tactically inept, or whatever they wanted to say? Why aren't we knocking on doors of old players and asking them what they think of what's happening at Arsenal? As a journalist, you milk that story for what it's worth, because whether you like it or not, and this is something I've just done an entire 10,000 word dissertation on, journalism is still a business. The only ones that are not running a business in terms of their news output is the BBC. Everyone else is either telling or selling stories. And if you're selling stories, Arsenal is a brilliant place to go sell stories, because every single season there is at least some members of the fan base arguing about whether he should stay or go. So as a journalist, it's a money spinner, and if I was, God forbid but if I ever wrote for the Daily Mail, I'd be on that every single day. It would be on the back of all of my sports pages. I'd be digging up everything I could. As me, I completely agree. It's ridiculous how much it gets, and the media do not help it whatsoever. But you have to take it. You have to take everything you see in, especially newspapers, at face value, and take it with a pinch of salt and kind of compare it to other things. Because at the end of the day, it's a matter of telling or selling stories, and Arsenal do sell a lot of stories.
And there you go. That is as thorough as it gets. And we thank you for the question from last week. Just a reminder, we will always get to them, even if we miss them when we pull out the questions. We've got a couple of other quickies. And Danny, let's find one for you. I'm going to ask this question from Mark, who's our Emma's fan, Abby Emma's. He's at the Irons Online. I was going to say Theron's Online then. Jesus. Anyway, he wants to know, does Rafa stay at Newcastle if they go down? And if they do, will they need a clear out? We sort of touched on it earlier on. So any way you could see Rafa staying?
Absolutely not. No way on earth. He is you don't go from Real Madrid and who was he at before that? He's managed. Was it Inter Milan? Maybe
Napoli.
Roma?
Napoli, yeah.
Napoli. I know some of those top teams over there. He is a a manager that would be managing a team that would be fighting for, if not the Champions League, then for the Europa League with a massive budget, not needing to be kicking his heels in the Championship, playing against teams that are like the Championship and lower league football. It's not really all that easy to play against, because they're going to get stuck in, and all these lovely players playing their fancy football are all going to get mashed. So no, he will not stay. I can see him staying in the Premier League though, getting another team and doing well with them. I don't know why he took the job in the first place. Well, actually, they probably said you keep it up, it's 5 million or something like that, which is what I think they've done with Sam Allardyce, which is a common thing in the Premier League. They say we're going down, but if you can save us, you'll get paid a big wad of cash. So there you go.
So we think he is gonna. I happen to agree with you. Another one for Ross. This is from AOM at Forza Manzora. He says, if Southampton do make the top 6, who or what would they need to kick into the top 4? I presume means next season. Besides retaining Koeman, he says, loves the pods. Thanks. So thank you very much, Forza Manzora. Appreciate that. What do you reckon, Ross?
We need another right back. Because Cedric Suarez he's a good right back, but he's not been a Nathaniel Klein, and Cuco Martina is there for rotation. That's what he was bought as a squad player, so we need a new right back. I throw my hat into the Nathan Byrne ring, but that's a different argument. And then the only other issue, the only thing that's stopping us from pushing on is a consistent goal scorer. You know, I've said this for the past couple of weeks now. We just need someone that's going to put the ball in the back of the net. And if it's not going to be Graziano Pella, who it looks like is going to go back to Italy this summer, and Jay Rodriguez, who could very well do it, but he needs consistent games. It's not going to be Shane Long, because I love Shane Long to bits, but he doesn't score enough goals consistently. So we're going to need either a new winger so we can move J-Rod back central, or we're going to need someone to play through the middle. And I know every team in the universe is being linked to him at the moment, but I would still love Alexander Lacazette if it's possible. I don't think it's going to be, but if we can find a consistent goal scorer, then that's exactly that's all we need, in my opinion, to do a Leicester.
Don't mention that name, I get excited. Oh, I do love Alex Lacazette. Anyway, you can't have him because I want him at Arsenal, so tough.
I'll end up with Ghazali or Batchway or someone that I've never heard of.
We'll sort you out as a chap called Sonogo. We'll sort you out. Don't worry about it. Final question comes in from Michael Filetti at Mike Filetti. Who would you like to see come up out of the Championship playoffs? Now, we've answered that question already, but I wanted just to touch on it, obviously, because Michael took the time to write into us. So I'm going to spin the question, and I'm going to say to you, Ross, who is best equipped to stay in the Premier League out of the 2 that have gone up and out of the 4 playoff contenders?
Cool. Out of the 4 that are in the playoffs, the only one I can see staying up are Hull, but they will need a lot of improvements up front and in the back line. Frankly, they need someone through the whole spine. Burnley, I think, will surprise people. I think they being relegated has been really good for them. They've been able to refresh. They've built a really good, solid team, and if they keep that together and they add in a couple of very smart ones, I think that they're set, because Andre Gray will be a very good Premier League striker. I think Middlesbrough are the ones I fear for. I don't think Middlesbrough are strong enough at the back, and I think they're going to get caught out by some of the better teams. And you've also got to remember that there's no bankers to go down next season, because we all knew that Aston Villa were going to go down this season. They were everyone's pick. We all thought that Sunderland, Norwich, and et cetera would be down there. I can't think of anyone that stayed up this season that I think is definitely going to be down there next season, except maybe West Brom. So there's no bankers. All 3 of those positions are up for grabs, and unfortunately, I think the Championship sides are going to struggle next season. But to answer the question directly, Burnley, I think, are best positioned to stay up if they strengthen well.
I would agree. And just out of morbid curiosity and fun, Danny, if you had to put your head on the line right now, and let's say that Norwich, Newcastle and Villa go down, and let's say that Middlesbrough and, well, we'll say Middlesbrough and Derby are up, and let's just eliminate the 3rd team. Who would you say right now would be the 3 that you would fear for going down from next year's Premier League?
So we're saying that Middlesbrough and Burnley are up, and who's the 3rd one?
We haven't decided on them, so we'll just take them. So we'll just take them for granted. That.
What if I go for my choice of Brighton?
Okay, we say Brighton got then. Yeah.
Out of those 3, Brighton are straight back down, because they're a tiny team. They're going to sack Chris Houghton as soon as possible, like he always does, because people like Norwich and West Ham. Was it West Ham he took up? No, Newcastle.
Newcastle. Yeah.
Norwich and Newcastle sacked him straight away. Didn't give him any time, and. Burnley, I think Burnley may just stay up, because they've kept most of their squad from when they got relegated. They've got a bloody good manager, they've got a good board and an owner, and they've got they're planning right for it, which is good to see. I can see Middlesbrough. I mean, Steve Gibson in the history of the Premier League, he brought Juninho, Ravanelli, and Emerson, and all these brilliant players, and he just went, no, not doing it anymore. Put too much money into this club. They reached the FA Cup and League Cup final, didn't they? And lost them both.
Europa,
the same season.
UEFA Cup, wasn't it?
Was it? Was that when they lost it 5-4 or something like that when Steve McLaren was manager?
Yeah, I think it was. I'm sure it was. Yeah.
I get all these things mixed up in my old age.
They definitely got to a final.
Yeah, if Steve Gibson wants to, he'll make them a mid-table team. If he doesn't want to, then he won't, and they'll go straight back down. Brighton, I have no hope for them at all. And Burnley will do all right, but I can see possibly all three of them coming straight back down again. I don't know the last time that's ever happened. But how about who do you think will go up? Do you think any of the three that have gone down? If we say like it's Newcastle, Villa, and Norwich, I can see Newcastle winning that league next season because they're not allowed to get rid of all their players, are they? Because they haven't got the things on. They'll probably keep them and go, because a lot of big teams do go, right, we give it one season, keep all of our players.
Do you know,
I think Newcastle will run away with it.
Looking at the Championship right now, it's so tough, isn't it? I think, and Russ will probably laugh at me here, I think Birmingham are worth keeping an eye on. I think Fulham are worth keeping an eye on. If they get things right.
To go down to League One?
No, to come up. And I think... Who else could I say? I think QPR, if they sort things out. But obviously that's subject to the points. But maybe even Wolves. Blackburn, of course, need to get a new manager. No, Birmingham and Fulham would be the two that leap off the page. That's excluding the current playoff teams and the teams that have gone up. Can't see Newcastle coming straight back. Norwich, I can't see coming straight back. Villa, I think, are going to spend at least 2 years down there. So, yeah, Fulham, Reading, nah. Nottingham Forest, no. I can't see anyone coming up from League 2 straight up, from League 1 straight up through the Championship. So, no. Who do you think, Ross? Are you scoffing at me there?
Norwich will come straight back up. I'm absolutely sure of that. I think that they went up as a Championship team and they stayed a Championship team. You know, they've picked up a couple of Premier League players, but when they come back down, they'll all stay. And I think they'll be right to go straight back up next season. Aston Villa, I'm deadly concerned for Aston Villa. I think they could end up Blackburning it, or at worst Blackpooling it.
So doesn't want the club.
No, it's an absolute mess. And unless they get a good buyer and a good manager, and I still think Nigel Pearson's the man for that job, then I think they're going to be there for a while. But it's going to be fascinating to watch them. Newcastle, assuming they go down, depends entirely on what they do to the team. Depends entirely on who they bring in. Because if it's Rafa, they're staying there. If it's someone Championship savvy, then they could very well come back up. But it depends entirely on what they do that summer. As for tips to who I think could go up next season, if we assume that Brighton, let's say Brighton go up, Hull will be right back in the mix. Derby will still be there. I don't think they'll go up, but I think they'll be in and around the playoffs again. Sheffield Wednesday will launch another very good campaign. I think Cardiff could come back stronger because they're replacing their manager. Ipswich will be in and around. Birmingham could do it, but I don't think they'll go up automatically. If they do it, they'll go via the playoffs. I've got to disagree on Wolves. I think Wolves are in for a very long, hard summer because they've got a lot of good young players there that sound like they're going to get absolutely ransacked. So it sounds like Wolves are in for a toughie. And I don't agree with Fulham personally. I think they're going to be there for a lot longer until they really start rebuilding. So, you know, my tips would be, generally speaking, the teams that are in and around at the moment. But Norwich, I think, are absolute bankers for me if they do as Burnley did and acclimatise well.
There you are, listeners. Proof that I know absolutely sod all. We shall see. If either of Fulham or Birmingham go up, I'm going to record this and I'm going to play it back and go, wahaha.
You're more than welcome, but that will only strengthen my argument that the Championship is the best league in the world.
I think it's safe to say I probably won't be right because I know very much littler than you. That's not even very good grammar, but never mind. Right, okay. We have gone on long enough. We have done as much as we can do. We've had a massive bumper episode today, but there was so much to cover. We had to get to it all. So we will wrap things up there. I will see if I can collar Ross and Danny to do their predictions after we finish recording, and we'll see if we can get those on the old Twitter account. Tiny couple of pieces of admin before we leave you. As usual, if you don't already, at the FH Podcast is where you can find us. Please tell your friends. We're still growing our audience, and the figures, I think Danny can confirm, are slowly creeping up week by week. We're getting more and more follows and more people slowly sort of finding us. So do tell your friends, and
quality over quantity.
Absolutely. And even if people don't necessarily follow European football, or indeed like listening to people prattle on about English football, just get them to give us a try. You never know. They might just like us. And the other two quick bits of admin is Euros. We are going to be doing some pods. By the look of it, quite a lot of pods. We've got a poll out at the moment on our Twitter accounts, again at the FH Podcast. It is a poll asking you, it's live until tomorrow, I believe, until tomorrow's European pod, asking you what you want from us. Do you want daily pods, a couple every other day, once a week, or another option, which I can't remember. At the moment, I think daily pods are the winners, so we're maybe doing sort of half-hour daily pods during the European Championships when there's games on. So let us know what your thoughts are on that. And the final thing is I will be joined, Danny mentioned him earlier on, by a journalist and a friend of ours, Simon Collings, and myself will be sitting down to record a Leicester City special podcast in the week. I think we're planning to record it on Wednesday, where we will sit down, and Simon works in sports journalism and has been at many of the press conferences with Claudio Ranieri and co throughout the season, and has had lots of fascinating stories and insight to give us. And he's going to just have a little bit of a chat with the pod and myself about what an amazing story it is, and just share some of his experiences. It'll be about an hour long. It'll be a special, be released via our website and iTunes. So do check that out. And if you know of any Leicester fans, please do get them to listen, because they just might enjoy it. I get the feeling they'd listen to anything right now that's talking about their amazing achievements. So that's that. And of course, the podcast, the usual European podcast, will be back tomorrow evening. Well, it'll be released on Tuesday. We're recording tomorrow evening, so get your questions in on Serie A, La Liga, or the Bundesliga. All of the hipsters will be in place for tomorrow. That's it. I'm going to stop talking now. Thank you, Danny, and thank you, Ross, for your time as usual.
Thank you all.
It's been a pleasure.
And as we always say on this podcast, keep your ears strong and your glasses trendy. We'll speak to you on the pod
That's how it goes.
tomorrow. And from ourselves and Danny's soon-to-be tattooed cat, we will speak to you very soon.
It's Bergkamp. That's magnificent.
Mark Vivian Foet, Sinclair's cross over Cunningham.
Di Canio. Oh, I do not believe that. That is sensational.
Tissier. He's going for goal again. Oh! Only Matthew Le Tissier can score goals like that.
Collymore closing in.